The Velen Empire had conquered more than 200 worlds. They moved from planet to planet like a storm that never ended. Their ships were massive. Their soldiers were tall and strong. Every species they met eventually fell to their knees and accepted Velen rule. It was simple. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. This was the way of the universe. Commander Lyros stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue planet below. He had led 40 conquests before this one. He had never failed. His second-in-command, Thren, stood beside him with a tablet in his hands. "Target 7742, Thren said. "They call it Earth. One dominant species. Humans. They have basic space technology, but nothing that can threaten us. Standard conquest protocol should work." Lyros nodded slowly. He had heard this same report many times before. Different planet. Different species. Same result. They would broadcast their demand for surrender. The species would panic. Leaders would argue. Then they would kneel. They always knelt. "Send the message," Lyros ordered. Far below, on the coast of a country called South Korea, a young woman named Yuna was working in her laboratory. She studied ocean life. She loved the sea and all the creatures in it. The morning had been normal. She had coffee. She checked her research. She watched the waves through her window. Then the sky turned dark. Yuna walked outside and looked up. Her coffee cup fell from her hand. Massive shapes were blocking the sun. Ships. Hundreds of them. They were so large that her mind could not understand what she was seeing at first. They hung in the sky like metal mountains. Her phone rang. It was her brother, Tejo. "Yuna, are you seeing this?" His voice was tight. Tejo was a captain in the Marine Corps. He was stationed at a base not far from her laboratory. "I see it," she whispered. "What is it?" "I don't know. But get inside. Lock your doors. I will call you when I know more." The call ended. Yuna did not go inside. She stood there and watched the ships. Around her, other people were coming out of buildings. They all looked up, with the same expression of shock and fear. Then every screen in the world lit up with the same image. A tall creature with gray skin and cold black eyes appeared. It wore armor that looked like it was made from bones. When it spoke, the words came in every language at once. "Creatures of this world. You are now subjects of the Velen Empire. Your planet belongs to us. Your lives belong to us. Kneel, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be erased. You have one planetary rotation to submit. This is not a request. This is your future." The message ended. Silence fell over the world. Then the chaos began. Governments called emergency meetings. Military forces went on high alert. People ran through streets. Some prayed. Some cried. Some fought each other for food and supplies. The world had never faced anything like this. In Seoul, deep inside a protected building, a man named Jinsu stood before a room full of generals and government officials. Jinsu was a military advisor. He had spent his life studying war, but he had never planned for a war against aliens. "What do we know?" the president asked. Jinsu pulled up images on a large screen. "Their ships are more advanced than anything we have. Our weapons may not even scratch them. They have done this before. Many times. They expect us to surrender. Then maybe we should," one official said. His voice was shaking. "If we fight, they will kill us all." The room erupted in arguments. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Jinsu stood quietly and let them argue. Finally, the president raised his hand for silence. He looked at Jinsu. "What do you think we should do?" Jinsu was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his country. He thought about his family. He thought about every war his people had survived throughout history. Invasions. Occupations. Suffering. They had survived it all because they refused to give up. "Sir," Jinsu said slowly, "they want us to kneel. With respect, that is not something we do." Across the ocean, similar conversations were happening. In America, In China, in Russia, in Brazil, in every nation on Earth, leaders faced the same impossible choice. Some wanted peace at any cost, but in military bases and small towns and city apartments, ordinary people were making a different choice. Tejo sat in the barracks with his unit. They had watched the alien message together. Now, they sat in silence. A young soldier named Minho spoke first. "Captain, what do we do?" Tejo looked at his soldiers. They were young. Many had never seen real combat. But he saw something in their eyes. Not just fear. Something else. Something harder. "We are soldiers," Tejo said. "We protect our country. We protect our people. That does not change because the enemy comes from the sky instead of across the border." "But sir," another soldier said, "can we even hurt them?" Tejo stood up. He walked to the window and looked at the ships hanging in the sky like dark promises. "I do not know," he admitted. "But I know this. My grandfather fought in a war. When he was younger than you, he had almost nothing. Old rifles, empty stomachs, winter cold that could kill. He fought enemies with better weapons and more soldiers. Everyone said he would lose. He turned back to face them. He did not lose. He did not kneel. And neither will we." Outside, the alien ships waited. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected this world to be like all the others. They were wrong. The Velen waited. One planetary rotation passed. Then another. Commander Lyros stood on his bridge and watched the planet below with growing confusion. No surrender came. No white flags. No begging for mercy. The communication channels were full of noise, but none of it was submission. "This is unusual," Thren said carefully. He did not want to anger his commander. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation." "Then we will help them understand," Lyros replied. His voice was cold. "Select a military target. Something small and isolated. We will show them what happens to those who do not kneel." Thren searched through the scans of the planet. He found a small military base in the mountains of a region called Gangwon Province. It was far from major cities. Perfect for a demonstration. "This one," Thren said. "Fewer than 100 soldiers. Basic weapons. We can destroy it in minutes." Lyros nodded. "Send 200 ground troops. Make it quick. Make it painful. Record everything and broadcast it to the planet." The dropships launched from the flagship like metal rain. Inside them, Velen warriors prepared for what they expected to be an easy victory. They were 8 feet tall. Their armor could stop most projectiles. Their weapons could cut through steel. They had conquered species far more advanced than these humans. This would be simple. At the mountain base, Sergeant Hanna received the warning from headquarters. Enemy ships were approaching. Evacuation orders were given. Helicopters were coming to take the soldiers away. Hanna looked at her soldiers, 42 of them, young, scared, but ready. "Sergeant," a young private said, "the helicopters will be here in 30 minutes. We should prepare to leave." "Leave. Applies large. Applies large. Applies large. Applies large." Hanna walked to the window and watched the alien ships descending through the clouds. They would arrive in 10 minutes, not 30. "The helicopters will not make it in time," she said calmly. "And even if they did, someone needs to stay behind and slow the enemy down. Give the civilians in the valley time to escape." The room was silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. "Stay and fight. Stay and die." "I am not ordering anyone to stay," Hanna continued. "But I am staying. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. No shame. No judgment. Nobody moved." Hanna felt a strange pride fill her chest. "Then let us show these things what humans are made of." The Velen ships landed in the valley below the base. 200 warriors marched out in perfect formation. Their leader, a captain named Vorik, looked up at the small human structure with contempt. This would take 10 minutes, maybe less. "Forward," Vorik commanded. The Velen began their march up the mountain. They moved with confidence. Their armor gleamed. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Then, the first explosion hit. A landmine, primitive, but effective. 3 Velen soldiers fell. Vorik stopped. His warriors looked around in confusion. These creatures were supposed to run. They were supposed to surrender. Why were they fighting? Continue forward, Vorik ordered. They cannot stop us. More explosions. Gunfire from the base above. Bullets bounced off Velen armor. But some found gaps. Some found joints. Some found eyes. More Velen fell. Vorik felt something he had not felt in decades of conquest. Surprise. The Velen reached the base walls. They expected the humans to retreat inside. To hide. To beg for mercy. Instead, the gates opened. 42 humans charged out, screaming, firing, throwing themselves at enemies twice their size. Sergeant Hannah led the charge. She knew she would die. They all knew. But death was not the point. The point was to fight. The point was to show these invaders that Earth would not go quietly. She shot one Velen in the throat, where the armor was thin. She stabbed another with her knife when her gun ran empty. A Velen warrior grabbed her and threw her against a wall. She felt her ribs break. She got up and kept fighting. Around her, her soldiers did the same. When they ran out of bullets, they used knives. When they lost their knives, they used rocks. When they had nothing left, they used their fists, their teeth, their bodies as weapons. Private Minho was not at this base, but his best friend was. A young man named Junho, who had joined the army to pay for his mother's medical bills. Junho died with his hands around a Velen throat, still squeezing, still fighting. Even as the light left his eyes. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours for 200 elite Velen warriors to defeat 42 humans. When it was over, Vorik stood among the bodies and tried to understand what had happened. He had lost 37 soldiers, 37, to primitives with basic weapons. This was impossible. This had never happened, he reported to Commander Lyros. His voice was not confident anymore. The base is destroyed, Commander. But we suffered losses. Losses? Lyros leaned forward. How many? 37 dead, 22 wounded. Silence. Lyros felt a cold sensation in his stomach. This was wrong. This was not how conquests worked. Show me the battle footage, he ordered. He watched the recording. He saw humans charging toward certain death. He saw wounded soldiers refusing to stay down. He saw a female human with broken bones still fighting, still screaming, still refusing to surrender even as she died. Thren watched beside him. When the footage ended, Thren spoke quietly. Commander, I have studied many species. I have seen fear in all of them. But these creatures... He paused, searching for words. They were not afraid, even when they knew they would die. They were not afraid. Lyros said nothing. He watched the footage again. He focused on the eyes of the humans. He had seen the eyes of conquered species many times. He knew what surrender looked like. He knew what fear looked like. He saw neither in these humans. Instead, he saw something that made him deeply uncomfortable. He saw rage. He saw defiance. He saw creatures who would rather die screaming than live kneeling. Commander, Thren said slowly, I do not think they are going to kneel. For the first time in 40 conquests, Lyros did not have an answer. Far below, on the blood-soaked mountain, the wind blew through the ruined base. All 42 defenders were dead, but the recording of their fight had already spread across the world. People watched Sergeant Hannah stand up with broken ribs. They watched soldiers fight with their bare hands. They watched humans die on their feet instead of live on their knees. And something changed in the hearts of 8 billion people. Fear was still there. But now there was something else growing beside it. Something older. Something fiercer. Hope and fury. The Velen changed their strategy. Commander Lyros decided that the mountain battle was a mistake. He had attacked soldiers. Soldiers were trained to fight. Civilians would be different. Civilians would break easily. They always did. He ordered attacks on cities. Not to destroy them completely, but to create fear. To make the common people demand surrender from their leaders. This had worked on every other world. Dropships descended on cities across the planet. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Cairo, Sao Paulo. Velen soldiers marched through streets, expecting screaming civilians to run and hide. They found something very different. In Seoul, a Velen patrol unit of 20 soldiers moved through a destroyed neighborhood. Their scanners showed humans hiding in the buildings. Easy targets. They kicked down doors and prepared to drag people out for public punishment. The first door they kicked down released a wave of dogs. Not pets, strays, wild things with scarred faces and hungry eyes. The dogs did not run. They attacked. They bit through gaps in armor. They went for throats and eyes and hands. The Velen killed them, but not before 3 soldiers were badly wounded. As the patrol recovered from the dog attack, humans struck from above. Resistance fighters on rooftops, Molotov cocktails, homemade explosives, gunfire from every window. The Velen fought back. They killed many humans. But more kept coming. Old men with kitchen knives. Young women with iron pipes. Children throwing rocks. Even the wounded kept fighting, crawling toward the enemy with weapons in their hands. When reinforcements finally arrived, the patrol was gone. 20 elite soldiers, killed by civilians and street dogs. Similar reports came from everywhere. In the Amazon rainforest, a Velen ground team was sent to establish a base. They had conquered jungle worlds before. This should be simple. It was not simple. The insects came first. Not ordinary insects. Giant swarms that crawled into armor joints, into breathing tubes, into eyes and ears. Then the snakes. Venomous things that seemed to appear from nowhere. Then the jaguars, moving like shadows, taking soldiers one by one, and mixed with the animals, always, were humans, indigenous fighters who knew the jungle better than any scanner could show. They used poison darts, and traps, and ambushes. They fought alongside the animals like they were brothers. 30 Velen went into that jungle. 3 came out. Commander Liros read the reports with growing unease. He called for his science officer, a thin Velen named Kress. "Explain this to me," Liros demanded. "Why do the animals fight alongside the humans? Are they trained? Controlled?" Kress studied the data for a long time before answering. "No, Commander. They are not controlled. They are simply similar." Similar? The humans and their animals? Yes. This planet is strange. On most worlds, evolution creates 1 or 2 apex predators, 1 dominant species. But this world, Kress pulled up biological scans. Everything here is a predator. Everything here evolved to fight. The plants are poisonous. The insects are venomous. The fish have teeth. Even their bacteria are aggressive. Liros stared at the data. What does this mean? It means we have never invaded a world like this. Most species we conquer evolved in safety. They have prey instincts. They freeze when threatened. They submit to save themselves. Kress paused. These creatures do not have prey instincts. All of them, from the smallest insect to the humans, evolved through constant violence. Fighting is not something they choose. It is what they are. While Liros processed this information, something else was happening on his ship. Yuna had been captured during a coastal raid. She had been working with resistance fighters to evacuate civilians when Velen soldiers found her. They brought her to the flagship for interrogation. Liros wanted to understand these humans better. She sat in a cold metal room for 3 days. They gave her no food, little water. They thought hunger and thirst would break her. On the 4th day, Liros came to see her himself. He was much larger than her. His armor made him look like a monster. His black eyes held no warmth, no mercy. He sat across from her and studied her like she was an interesting insect. "I have questions," he said through a translator device. "You will answer them." Yuna looked up at him. She was weak from hunger. Her body ached, but her eyes were clear. "Ask," she said. "Why do you resist? You cannot win. Your weapons are primitive. Your numbers are small compared to our empire. We have conquered species far more advanced than you. Why do you fight? Yuna was quiet for a moment. She thought about Tejo. She thought about the ocean she loved. She thought about every creature on her planet, fighting and dying and refusing to give up. You have conquered species that evolved in safety, she said slowly. Explain. On Earth, everything is trying to kill everything else. Always. Since the beginning. Our oceans are full of monsters. Our land is full of predators. Even our smallest creatures carry poison and disease. We did not survive by hiding. We survived by fighting. We survived by being more dangerous than everything that wanted to eat us. Lyros leaned forward. But you must know you cannot defeat us. Yuna smiled. It was a thin, tired smile, but it was real. Maybe not. But that is not the point. You want us to kneel. You want us to submit. But you do not understand. We do not have that instinct. We do not know how to surrender. It is not in our blood. She leaned forward, matching his posture. You have conquered 200 worlds. How many of them fought like we do? How many made you bleed for every inch of ground? How many of your soldiers have died here compared to all your other conquests combined? Lyros did not answer, but his silence was answer enough. This is what we are, Yuna continued. Not just humans, everything on our planet. We fight because fighting is living. The moment we stop fighting, we stop being what we are. You can kill us. You can burn our cities. You can destroy our entire species. But you will never make us kneel. She sat back. That is why we resist. Because we do not know how to do anything else. Lyros stood. He looked at this small, fragile creature who should have been begging for her life. He saw no fear in her eyes, only fire. He left without another word. That night, alone in his quarters, Lyros reviewed all the data from Earth. The impossible battles. The suicidal charges. The animals fighting alongside humans. The planet itself, seeming to reject the Velen presence. For the first time in his long career, Commander Lyros wondered if he had finally found a world that could not be conquered. The thought kept him awake until morning. 6 months passed. The Velen held the major cities. Their flags flew over broken buildings. Their soldiers patrolled empty streets. On paper, they were winning. But paper does not fight wars. People do. Outside the cities, the world was on fire. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of resistance. Every forest hid fighters. Every mountain held ambush points. Every river was a trap waiting to happen. The Velen could not control the countryside. They could not control the wilderness. They could barely control their own supply lines. Captain Tejo had become something more than a soldier. He was now a leader of the Korean resistance. His unit had grown from a few dozen survivors to over 1,000 fighters. They worked with Commander Jiho, a former Special Forces officer, and Unbi, an intelligence agent who had escaped Seoul when it fell. They had learned how to fight this war. Not with direct battles they could not win, but with patience, with cunning, with the help of the planet itself. Report, Tejo said during a meeting in their hidden mountain base. Unbi pulled up a map. Velen supply convoy moving through the Eastern Valley tomorrow. 40 soldiers. 10 vehicles. Heavy weapons. Defenses? Standard formation. They have learned to be careful. But they still do not understand this land. Commander Jiho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The Eastern Valley. That is tiger territory. Tejo nodded slowly. Contact the wildlife teams. Tell them to move the feeding stations. Draw the tigers toward the valley road. This was their new way of war. They did not just fight with guns and bombs. They fought with nature. They had discovered that Earth's creatures could be allies. Not controlled or trained, but guided, attracted to certain areas, given reasons to be angry. The next day, the Velen convoy entered the valley. They were cautious. Scanners active, weapons ready. They had learned to expect ambushes. They did not expect the tigers, 4 of them. Massive beasts that had been drawn to the valley by the smell of raw meat left along the road. When the first vehicle stopped to check a blocked road, the tigers attacked. They leaped through windows, they dragged soldiers from vehicles, they killed with ancient efficiency. In the chaos, the resistance struck. Explosives buried under the road. Snipers on the ridges. Fighters appearing from hidden caves. 20 minutes later, the convoy was gone. Not a single Velen survived. The tigers melted back into the forest. Their hunger satisfied. Similar tactics were used everywhere. In Africa, resistance fighters worked with elephant herds that had learned to hate the smell of Velen armor. In Australia, they used the venomous snakes and spiders that seemed to find Velen camps with suspicious accuracy. In North America, wolf packs harassed patrols while human fighters waited for the perfect moment to strike. The Velen were being eaten alive. Not by a superior army, but by a planet that had decided they were unwelcome. While the physical war raged, another battle was being fought in the invisible world of information. Do-hyun was only 19 years old. Before the invasion, he had been a university student studying computer science. Now he was the leader of a team of hackers fighting the most important war of all. "We are close," he told his team. They worked in a basement, lit only by computer screens. Their communication encryption is complex, but not unbreakable. "Give me 3 more days." It took 2. On the 200th day of the invasion, Do-hyun cracked the Velen communication network. For a few precious hours, they had access to everything. Enemy positions, supply routes, command codes, and most importantly, the ability to broadcast. Resistance leaders from every continent coordinated through secret channels. They planned something that had never been attempted. A global strike. Every resistance group, attacking at the same time. Maximum chaos, maximum damage. Taeho led the Korean assault on a major Velen base outside Seoul. Jiho commanded the southern front. Eunbi coordinated intelligence between all groups. Similar attacks happened in every country. Thousands of operations, millions of fighters. And at the moment of maximum chaos, Do-hyun sent his message. It burst through every Velen communication channel. Every ship, every base, every soldier's helmet display. The message was simple, accompanied by footage from every continent. "You came here expecting slaves. You found something else. We are Earth. We do not bow. We do not break. We bite back. Look at us. We are still here. We are still fighting, and we will never stop." The footage showed everything. Humans fighting in ruined cities. Animals attacking Velen patrols. Children throwing rocks at armored soldiers. Old women spitting in the faces of their captors. Wounded fighters getting up again and again until their bodies could not move anymore. And through it all, the same message repeated. Commander Lyros watched from his flagship as his conquered planet erupted. Fires in every city, attacks on every base. His communication network compromised. His soldiers dying by the hundreds. His advisors gathered around him, shouting suggestions. Orbital bombardment. Glass the surface. Burn the forests. Deny them cover. Release chemical weapons. Kill everything. Lyros raised his hand for silence. He looked at Thren, his most trusted advisor. "Can we do it? Can we destroy them all?" Thren was quiet for a long moment. "Yes. We have the firepower. We can sterilize this planet. But the cost, Commander." Thren pulled up numbers on a display. "We have lost more soldiers on this single world than in our last 50 conquests combined. Our supply lines are bleeding. Our troops are exhausted. Morale is breaking. We are the Velen Empire. We do not retreat. No. But we must ask ourselves, is this planet worth the price?" Thren looked at the burning world below. "They will not surrender. We know this now. Every city we take will cost us thousands of soldiers. Every forest will swallow entire units. Even if we kill every human, the animals will keep fighting. The insects will keep fighting. The planet itself will keep fighting. Lyros stared at Earth. Beautiful, blue, burning with defiance. When did we last request reinforcements for a single planet? Never, Commander. Never in the history of the Empire. Lyros closed his eyes. He thought about all his conquests, all the species that had knelt before him, all the worlds that had accepted Velen rule. None of them had been like this. Send the request, he said quietly. Tell the Empire we need a second fleet. Thren nodded. But as he turned to leave, he stopped. Commander, there is one more thing. Our analysts have been studying the humans' broadcast. The one they sent through our network. Quote, what about it? They did not just send it to us. Thren's voice was strange. They sent it everywhere. To every Velen communication relay in range. To our colonies. To our conquered worlds. Lyros felt cold. They sent their message of defiance to our entire empire? Yes, Commander, and our subjects are watching. Below, on the burning planet, Teho stood in the ruins of a captured Velen base. Around him, his fighters were celebrating. They had won a battle. One of many. Not the war, but a battle. He looked up at the sky, at the massive ships still hanging among the stars. We are still here, he whispered, and we are just getting started. The second fleet arrived 3 weeks later. It was enormous. 300 ships, each one carrying thousands of soldiers. Commander Lyros felt relief when he saw them emerge from faster-than-light travel. With these reinforcements, he could finally crush this stubborn planet. But something was wrong. The fleet did not move into attack position. Instead, Admiral Vorn, commander of the reinforcements, requested an immediate meeting with Lyros aboard his flagship. Vorn was old. He had been conquering worlds when Lyros was still a child. His face was covered with scars from battles on 100 planets. When he walked onto Lyros's bridge, his expression was grim. Admiral, Lyros greeted him. Thank you for coming. With your forces we can finally end this. Vorn did not respond immediately. He walked to the viewing window and looked down at Earth. Smoke rose from burning cities. Flashes of light marked battles still raging on the surface. How many soldiers have you lost here? Vorn asked quietly. 47,000. But with your reinforcements. 47,000. Vorn turned to face him. On one planet. Against a species with primitive technology. They are unusually resistant, but they are still just flesh and blood. They can be killed. Can they? Vorn walked to Lyros's command console. He pressed buttons and brought up a star map. Do you know what has happened while you were fighting here? Lyros shook his head. Rebellions. 17 of them, on worlds we conquered centuries ago. Vorn's voice was heavy. The message those humans sent through our network reached our colonies. Our subjects watched it. They saw these primitives fighting. They saw them refuse to kneel. They saw them make us bleed. The star map lit up with red dots. Each dot was a world in uprising. They are inspired, Vorn continued. Species that submitted generations ago are now fighting. They say if the humans can resist, so can they. The Empire is burning, Lyros, not from the outside, from within. Lyros felt the deck shift beneath his feet, though the ship had not moved. What are our orders? Withdraw, immediately. The fleet is needed to contain the rebellions, not to conquer one planet that refuses to die. But the Empire has never retreated from a conquest. Never. Then this will be the first time. Vorn looked at Earth once more. Some worlds are not worth taking. Some species are not worth fighting. These humans, they are a disease. Not because they are evil, but because they spread. Their defiance spreads. Their refusal to kneel spreads. The longer we stay here, the more our subjects will learn from them. Before they left, Lyros asked to see the prisoner one more time. Yuna had been held for months now. They had tried everything to break her. Starvation, isolation, threats. Nothing worked. She was thin and scarred when they brought her to him, but she still walked without help. She still looked at him without fear. I came to tell you that we are leaving, Lyros said. Yuna said nothing. She just watched him with those burning eyes. I do not understand, Lyros admitted. I have conquered 40 worlds. I have broken countless species. I have never met anything like you. Why? Why fight when you cannot win? Why suffer when you could submit and live in peace? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was rough, from months of little water. You still do not understand. Peace through submission is not peace. It is just a slow death. You take away our freedom. You take away our choices. You take away everything that makes life worth living. And you call it peace? She stepped closer to him, this tiny human facing a giant from the stars. We fight because fighting is what we are. We fight because our ancestors fought. We fight because every creature on our planet fights. From the smallest bacteria to the largest whale, everything on Earth struggles to survive. That struggle is not suffering, it is life. She smiled. It was a terrible smile, full of pain and triumph. You think you are conquerors. But you are just bullies. You pick on the weak. You take from those who cannot fight back. But you never learned the most important lesson of the universe. The weak do not stay weak forever. The conquered do not stay conquered forever. One day, someone will rise. And on that day, your empire will fall. Lyros looked at her for a long time. Then he did something that surprised both of them. He bowed his head. You are a worthy enemy, he said. I hope we never meet again. He ordered her released before the fleet left Earth's orbit. Tejo was waiting when the shuttle carrying his sister landed at the resistance base. He had not slept in days. He had led the final assault on the Velen ground forces as they retreated to their ships. He was covered in dirt and blood and exhaustion. But when Yuna walked down the shuttle ramp, he ran to her like a child. They held each other for a long time without speaking. Around them, fighters cheered. The alien ships were leaving. The sky was clearing. After months of darkness, the sun was finally breaking through the clouds. Is it over? Yuna whispered. Tejo looked up. The Velen fleet was shrinking into the distance, disappearing into the cold space between stars. This part is over, he said. But I do not think we will be the same again. 17. He was right. The invasion had lasted less than a year, but it changed everything. Humans had seen what they were capable of. They had seen ordinary people become heroes. They had seen their planet fight beside them. They had seen what happened when they refused to give up. 50 years later, humanity had spread to the stars. Not as conquerors, but as something else. Explorers. Builders. Defenders of the weak. Admiral Yuna, her hair gray now, but her eyes still burning, stood on the bridge of humanity's first deep space flagship. They had found the Velen Empire again. Or rather, what was left of it. The rebellions had never stopped. World after world had risen up. Inspired by the message Do-hyun had sent so many years ago, the empire had cracked, then shattered, then collapsed into 100 warring pieces. On the worlds they visited, humans found monuments. Statues of human soldiers. Carvings of wolves and tigers. Paintings of ordinary people fighting with rocks and fire. The former subjects of the Velen had built them. Memorials to the species that had shown them something they had forgotten. Bowing was a choice. On one such world, Yuna met an elder of the local species. They were tall, thin creatures, with silver skin and gentle eyes. Once, they had been slaves. Now they were free. You are one of them? The elder asked. The first generation? The ones who refused to kneel? Yuna nodded. We all refused. That is what we do. How? The elder's voice was full of wonder. How does a species become like you? How do you learn to stand when the universe wants you to fall? Every third. Yuna thought about the question. She thought about Sergeant Hana, who had died fighting with broken bones. She thought about Do-hyun, who had cracked an alien network with nothing but determination. She thought about Tejo, who had passed away peacefully 10 years ago, surrounded by family, having never once regretted the choice to fight. She thought about Earth, about the wolves and the tigers and the snakes and the insects, about a planet where everything was a predator. About a world that had never learned how to surrender, because surrendering meant death. "We did not learn it," she finally said. "It is simply what we are. When something tries to push us down, we push back. When something tells us to kneel, we stand taller. When something says we cannot win, we fight anyway." She looked up at the stars. So many of them. So many worlds. So many species now free, because one small planet had refused to break. "That is the secret," Yuna said. "There is no secret. You just decide that bowing is not an option. And then you never bow. No matter what. No matter how much it hurts. No matter how impossible it seems. You never, ever bow." The elder was silent for a long time. "Your species is terrifying," they finally said. Yuna laughed. It was a warm sound, full of life. "I know," she said. "That is the point." She walked back to her ship, ready to visit the next world, ready to spread the same message that had freed a galaxy. "We do not bow. We never bow. And neither should you."